Are you suffering or are you awakening? This may be one of the most important questions you can ask yourself at this moment in your life. During decades of working with spiritual anatomy and accompanying thousands of people on their transformation journeys, I discovered that we often confuse the most sacred processes of spiritual growth with moments of pain or personal crisis. Today, I want to reveal to you the fundamental difference between suffering and awakening, a distinction that can completely revolutionize your understanding of what you are experiencing and transform your relationship with life's challenges. If you have been going through difficult periods, if you have felt that your life is being dismantled and reconstructed, if you have experienced confusion, pain, or a sensation that nothing makes sense like before, this video may be exactly what your soul needs to hear at this moment. When I began my work as an intuitive medical practitioner in the 80s, I myself did not understand this crucial difference between suffering and awakening. I went through years of emotional and spiritual confusion, experiencing what at the time I interpreted as devastating personal crises, but which I later understood as being the first stages of my spiritual awakening. The difference between these two states is not in what happens to us externally, but in our capacity to understand energetically what is occurring and how our sacred contracts are unfolding through the experiences we live. Suffering is resistance. It is when our ego desperately clings to the known, the controllable, the familiar, even when our soul is calling us to evolve beyond these limitations. Awakening is conscious surrender. It is when we begin to understand that life's challenges are frequently portals for consciousness expansion and that our energetic anatomy is reorganizing to accommodate higher levels of spiritual perception. The first fundamental aspect that distinguishes suffering from awakening lies in the quality of pain we experience. During my clinical work, I observed that suffering has a circular, repetitive quality that seems to trap us in dense, energetic patterns without offering real growth or resolution. When we are suffering, we tend to fixate mentally on how things should be different, how people should act differently, how the world should function according to our expectations. This type of pain arises primarily from the third chakra, the energetic center located in the solar plexus, where our sense of personal control and ego identity reside. Suffering happens when we resist life's natural flow and try to maintain our reality within parameters that our mind considers safe or acceptable. It is a pain that does not produce transformation because it is rooted in the refusal to accept what is, in the insistence that our limited version of reality should prevail over existence's greater mysteries. Awakening, on the other hand, produces a completely different type of pain. It is a pain that has purpose, direction, and, more importantly, produces tangible growth in our capacity to love, understand, and connect with deeper dimensions of existence. Awakening's pain arises when our soul is expanding our consciousness beyond the limitations that kept us small or trapped in destructive patterns. This pain frequently manifests as a sensation of farewell, as if we were leaving old versions of ourselves behind, which can be simultaneously liberating and terrifying. During awakening, you may experience deep sadness without a specific cause, because you are energetically processing the end of karmic cycles or releasing energetic contracts that have already fulfilled their purpose in your spiritual evolution. The second crucial difference between suffering and awakening lies in our relationship with time and external circumstances. In suffering, we become trapped in the past or anxious about the future, rarely managing to fully inhabit the present moment. Our energy becomes fragmented between regrets, resentments, fears, and fantasies about how things could be different. This dispersed energetic state prevents us from accessing our intuition and our capacity to perceive the signs that life constantly offers us to navigate our challenges with greater wisdom. When we suffer, we tend to interpret difficult events as evidence that we are victims of circumstances, that the universe is conspiring against us, or that we do not deserve happiness or success. Awakening, on the other hand, develops our capacity to inhabit the present with conscious acceptance, even when circumstances are challenging. During awakening, we begin to develop what I call archetypal perspective, which allows us to see our personal experiences within the larger context of universal patterns of spiritual growth. We begin to understand that often the most difficult situations are exactly those our soul chose before incarnating to accelerate our consciousness evolution. This perspective does not minimize the real pain we may be feeling, but contextualizes it within a larger framework of meaning and purpose. In awakening, we develop the capacity to experience gratitude, even amid difficulty. Not because we enjoy suffering, but because we recognize that our challenges are strengthening us spiritually in ways we could never have imagined. The third distinctive marker between suffering and awakening lies in the quality of our relationships and our capacity to maintain compassion even during difficult periods. Suffering makes us self-centered out of emotional survival necessity. When we are trapped in suffering patterns, our energy becomes so focused on our own pain that we lose the capacity to authentically connect with other people or to offer meaningful emotional support to those around us. Our conversations become circular, focused on our version of events, on how we were wronged, or on how others should change so that we feel better. Suffering creates energetic isolation because it operates from the premise that we are separate from others and that we need to compete for limited resources of love, attention, or security. During my years of clinical work, I observed that people trapped in suffering patterns frequently drain energy from their relationships because they are operating from lower chakras that are unbalanced or blocked, especially the first and second chakras, related to survival and emotional control. Awakening, in contrast, expands our capacity for compassion and authentic connection, even when we are going through intense personal transformations. During awakening, our pain becomes a bridge to understanding universal suffering, and we develop the capacity to offer genuine presence to other people who are facing their own challenges. Our communication becomes more authentic, less defensive, and more focused on understanding than on being understood. Awakening activates the heart chakra in ways that allow us to maintain loving connections, even when we are processing personal pain, because we understand that our individual healing contributes to humanity's collective healing. Now, I want to speak about an aspect of awakening that can be particularly confusing and that is often erroneously interpreted as suffering. During the spiritual awakening process, we frequently experience what I call ego death, which can be one of the most disorienting experiences of the human journey. This is not a literal death, but the gradual or sudden dismantling of the identities, beliefs, and mental structures we built to feel safe in the world. Your career, your relationships, your beliefs about spirituality, your emotional survival strategies, everything may begin to feel unstable or meaningless. During this phase, you may experience what mystics call the dark night of the soul, periods where you feel completely lost, where your old sources of meaning and purpose seem to have evaporated. The crucial difference here is that although this experience is deeply uncomfortable, it is creating space for a more authentic and expanded version of who you really are. Suffering fights against this transformation, trying to cling to the known even when it no longer serves us. Awakening develops the courage to let go, to trust the process even when we cannot clearly see where we are going. During this deconstruction phase, your energetic system is literally reorganizing to accommodate higher frequencies of consciousness. Your chakras are recalibrating, your perceptions are expanding, and your capacity to access intuitive guidance is being refined. I will share with you some practical questions I developed over the years to help people distinguish between suffering and awakening in their own lives. First question: is this difficult situation teaching me something about myself that I did not know before, or am I simply repeating the same patterns of thought and reaction without real growth? Second question: do I feel that this experience, however painful it may be, is connecting me more deeply with my authenticity and with my life purpose, or am I feeling more disconnected from who I really am? Third question: is this difficulty expanding my capacity for compassion and understanding, or is it making me more closed, defensive, or bitter? Fourth question: is there a quality of learning or transformation in this experience that, even if painful, I recognize as necessary for my spiritual growth? Fifth question: when I become quiet and connect with my intuition, do I feel that I am being guided through this situation by a greater wisdom, or do I feel that I am simply being punished without purpose? I want to stop here for a moment to connect directly with you who are watching. If you have been feeling lost, confused, or have questioned whether what you are living is growth or simply pain without meaning, I want you to know that your courage in seeking understanding is already a sign that you are awakening, not just suffering. People who are only suffering rarely seek spiritual perspectives on their experiences. The fact that you are here, listening to these words, indicates that some part of you recognizes that there is a greater meaning in your challenges. If you have experienced some of the things I described about awakening, leave a comment simply saying, "I am awakening," so that we can create a wave of recognition and mutual support in this community. Your courage in publicly recognizing yourself may be exactly the inspiration another person needs to also recognize their own awakening journey. Each time someone authentically shares their experience of spiritual growth, an energetic resonance is created that facilitates other people's awakening. One of the most profound dimensions of the difference between suffering and awakening lies in our relationship with the concept of victim versus conscious co-creator. In suffering, we operate predominantly from victim consciousness, feeling that life happens to us in ways that are completely outside our control. We interpret challenges as evidence that we are unlucky, that others have more luck, or that the universe is fundamentally unfair. This perspective, although understandable during periods of intense pain, keeps our energy trapped in low frequencies of powerlessness and resentment. When we operate as victims, our energetic anatomy becomes concentrated in the lower chakras, specifically in the first chakra related to survival and in the third chakra related to personal power, but in unbalanced ways that keep us in a state of constant reactivity. Awakening invites us to recognize our nature as conscious co-creators of our reality. This does not mean that we are responsible for everything that happens to us, especially traumas or systemic injustices that are completely outside our control. It means that within the circumstances we face, we always have choices about how to respond energetically and how to use our experiences to strengthen our soul and contribute to our spiritual evolution. During awakening, we begin to understand that many of our challenges are related to the sacred contracts we made before incarnating, energetic agreements that include certain lessons, relationships, and growth opportunities our soul chose to accelerate its evolution. This perspective does not minimize the reality of pain, but places it within a sacred context that allows us to find meaning and direction even in the most difficult experiences. Awakening also radically transforms our relationship with the concept of perfection and with our expectations about how life should be. During suffering, we frequently fixate on idealized versions of how our life, our relationships, or our circumstances should be for us to feel happy or fulfilled. We create mental fantasies about perfection and then suffer when reality does not correspond to these expectations. This fixation on how things should be prevents us from recognizing the inherent perfection of what is, even when it is challenging or painful. Awakening develops our capacity to recognize divine perfection within human imperfection, to see how each experience, even the most difficult ones, contributes to our growth and spiritual evolution. During my work with clients over the years, I discovered that awakening frequently includes moments of revelation where we perceive that situations we interpreted as failures or setbacks were actually sacred redirections that guided us to paths more aligned with our authentic purpose. Awakening teaches us that life rarely follows our ego plans, but always follows a greater plan that our soul understands, even when our mind cannot see the complete panorama. During decades of working with spiritual anatomy, I observed that awakening also includes tangible physical changes in our energetic body that are completely different from the physical manifestations of chronic suffering. Suffering tends to create energetic blockages, chronic muscular tension, fatigue that does not improve with rest, and a general sensation of density or weight in the body. When we suffer, our energy becomes stagnant because we resist life's natural flow and maintain thought and emotion patterns that drain our vitality. Awakening, although it may include periods of fatigue related to the energetic adjustments that are happening, generally produces a different quality of physical sensations. You may experience waves of energy that move through your body, especially along the spine where the main chakras are located. You may feel heat or tingling in specific areas, especially in the heart, throat, between the eyebrows, or at the top of the head. Your hands may warm during moments of deep emotional connection with other people. You may develop greater sensitivity to foods, environments, or other people's energies, not as a limitation, but as a refinement of your energetic perception capacity. Sleep may become deeper and more restorative, and you may begin to have more vivid dreams or experiences during meditation that indicate consciousness expansion. Another fundamental difference between suffering and awakening lies in our relationship with solitude and with silence. During periods of suffering, we tend to avoid being alone with our thoughts because our mind is frequently occupied with worries, regrets, or fears that generate anxiety when we do not have external distractions. Suffering makes us seek constant external stimulation to avoid confronting the difficult emotions we are processing. Awakening, on the other hand, develops our capacity to find deep nourishment in solitude and in silence. We begin to recognize that some of our most profound moments of insight, healing, and spiritual connection happen when we are quiet and alone, away from the demands and distractions of the external world. During awakening, silence becomes a sacred space where we can hear our soul's voice, access intuitive guidance, and process the transformations that are happening in our interior. You may begin to long for periods of solitude, not as escape from others, but as necessary time to integrate the consciousness expansions you are experiencing. Nature may become a sanctuary where you feel particularly connected with deeper dimensions of existence, and contemplative practices like meditation, prayer, or simply sitting in silence may become sources of strengthening instead of activities you avoid. Now I want to address an aspect of awakening that can be particularly confusing: the experience of feeling pain for the world's sufferings in more intense ways than before. During awakening, our capacity for empathy and compassion expands dramatically, which can make us feel more sensitive to injustices, violence, environmental destruction, and humanity's collective suffering. This can initially be interpreted as depression or as a sign that something is wrong with us, but it actually indicates that our heart chakra is opening to broader dimensions of human experience. This expanded sensitivity is not a burden to be avoided, but an indication that we are developing the capacity to be instruments of healing and transformation in the world. During my own awakening, I went through periods where I physically felt humanity's collective pain, especially related to historical traumas and systemic injustices. Initially, this overwhelmed me, but I learned that this sensitivity was a calling to use my intuitive gifts and my understanding of spiritual anatomy to help other people process and heal their deepest wounds. Awakening invites us to find constructive and sustainable ways to channel our expanded sensitivity into actions that contribute to world healing, whether through direct work with people, creativity, conscious activism, or simply maintaining a loving presence in our communities. One of the most important aspects of awakening that I want to highlight is how it transforms our relationship with the concept of surrender. In suffering, we frequently interpret the idea of surrender as defeat, as giving up on our dreams or accepting unacceptable situations. Suffering resists surrender because the ego interprets any form of letting go as loss of control or as evidence of weakness. During awakening, we discover that true surrender is actually an act of tremendous courage and spiritual strength. It is the willingness to trust forces greater than our limited understanding, to allow our life to be guided by our soul's wisdom instead of only by our ego's strategies. Surrender during awakening does not mean passivity, but rather aligned action, where our efforts are synchronized with life's natural flow instead of constantly fighting against it. When we consciously surrender during awakening, we frequently experience a deep relief, as if a heavy load had been removed from our shoulders. We discover that we can take decisive and effective actions from a place of interior tranquility, instead of acting from fear, urgency, or need to control specific outcomes. This quality of conscious surrender is one of the distinctive marks of mature awakening, where we learn to dance with life instead of trying to dominate it. I want to share with you something I learned about the difference between suffering that simply perpetuates itself and suffering that transforms into wisdom through awakening. There is a type of pain we experience when we resist the lessons life is trying to teach us, when we insist on doing things our way even when it is not working, when we refuse to examine our own contributions to the difficult situations we face. This type of suffering tends to repeat in cycles, manifesting through similar relational patterns, recurring professional challenges, or personal crises that have consistent themes over time. During awakening, we begin to develop the capacity to recognize these karmic patterns and to make different choices that break cycles of destructive repetition. Awakening gives us courage to honestly examine our own behaviors, limiting beliefs, and unhealed wounds that may be contributing to creating painful experiences in our lives. This is not a way of blaming ourselves for everything that happens to us, but rather reclaiming our power to influence our reality through greater self-awareness and more conscious choices. When we transform suffering into wisdom through awakening, that specific pain rarely returns because we integrated the lessons it came to teach us. If you have reached this point in this video, your soul is clearly seeking deeper understanding about your spiritual journey, and I want to honor that search by offering some practical guidance for navigating awakening with greater ease and less resistance. First, develop a daily practice of interior connection, whether through meditation, prayer, journaling, or simply moments of conscious silence where you can hear your inner voice without external distractions. During awakening, your intuition becomes one of your most important tools for navigating changes and making aligned decisions. Second, surround yourself with people who honor and support your spiritual growth, even if this means spending less time with people who drain your energy or who ridicule your awakening journey. Awakening frequently includes a natural reorganization of our relationships, where we distance ourselves from connections based on drama, competition, or superficiality, and we approach people who share values of authenticity, growth, and conscious service. Third, be patient and compassionate with yourself during periods of confusion or disorientation. Awakening is rarely linear, and it is normal to experience moments of clarity followed by periods of uncertainty. Trust that each phase of the process has its purpose and that you are being guided even when you cannot clearly see the path ahead. Fourth, find ways to channel your sensitivity and expanded insights to contribute positively to the world around you, whether through creative work, community service, or simply maintaining a more loving presence in your daily interactions. Concluding our conversation today, I want to leave you with a fundamental truth I learned through decades studying the human soul's journey. Awakening is simultaneously the most natural and the most extraordinary process we can experience as human beings. It is natural because it is where our soul has always been directing us since the moment we were born. It is extraordinary because it completely transforms our capacity to experience love, meaning, purpose, and connection with the divine. If you are going through difficult periods but recognize some of the awakening qualities I described today, trust that you are exactly where you need to be in your spiritual journey. Your soul is infinitely wiser than your mind, and it is orchestrating experiences that accelerate your evolution even when your personality would prefer easier paths. Awakening is a sacred privilege, an opportunity to discover who you really are beyond all the temporary identities you adopted to navigate this human world. And always remember, you are never alone in this journey, even when you feel isolated or misunderstood. There is a global community of awakened souls that understands exactly what you are experiencing, and your courage in awakening contributes to the consciousness elevation of all humanity. If this video resonated with your experience and you would like to continue receiving guidance to navigate your awakening with wisdom and courage, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. Every week, I share insights about spiritual anatomy, sacred contracts, and practical tools for living with greater consciousness and authentic purpose. Your subscription not only keeps you connected to this community of people committed to genuine spiritual growth, but also allows me to continue creating content that serves your profound transformation journey. It is an extraordinary privilege for me to be able to share these discoveries with you and be part of your awakening journey, even if only through these videos. Always remember that you possess within you everything you need to successfully navigate any transformation your soul calls you to experience. Trust yourself, trust the process, and especially trust your soul's wisdom that knows the path even when your mind is confused. Until our next conversation, may you walk with courage, live with consciousness, and always honor the sacred contract your soul made before coming to this life. You are loved, you are supported, and you are here for important reasons that will become clearer as you continue following the voice of your authentic spiritual nature. I am sending love and light on your journey to fully become who you truly are